Hello and welcome to Accounting Excellence Talks, brought to you this month by Capium. I'm Richard Hattersley. Thanks for joining us. And so you've done MTD, you've got that out of the way. And I'm sure you're wondering, what next? What shall I do next? Well, help is at hand. One option could be niching. So, to help you down this path, we have assembled an expert panel to hold your hand and walk you down the path to find your specialism. So up first, we have Indy Tatler. Indy, thanks for joining us. And could you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, so I work for Capium. Capium is a cloud practice software, and like most of my roles, it's in a tech space. So in growth marketing, which is what I kind of tend to master in those roles, we call niching something like obtaining your beachhead, and we can come on to that later. But yeah, so for me, that's something that I've tend to do with a lot of the roles that I'm in. And Capium is obviously an accountancy platform that offers 6 core services to the accountants in practice across the UK.
Wonderful, thanks for joining us, Indy. And then next up, we have Nadia Hussain Mahmood. Nadia, thanks for joining us. And of course, you are a top 5 new firm of the year at the Accounting Excellence Awards this year, so congratulations on that. So can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and also your firm, Be Accountancy?
Thank you, Richard. So I am Nadia Hussain Mahmood, and I'm a chartered accountant. And I founded a cloud-based accountancy firm called Be Accountancy. And Be Accountancy focuses on the armed forces community, so that's my niche, really.
Wonderful, thanks for joining us, Nadia. And finally, we are joined by best-selling author, consultant, former practice owner, Della Hudson. Della, thanks for joining us today. For those who don't know, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yes, I ran a practice, Hudson Business Accountants and Advisors, for several years, and then when I sold it, I went on and wrote The Numbers Business, how to grow a successful cloud accountancy practice. I almost forgot the name of it then. And I also consult for accountants and coach.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. I'm sure it's going to be a brilliant panel. But before we can crack on with all the information you need to find your niche, we've got a little bit of housekeeping. So if we do encounter any technical issues throughout this webcast, all sessions will be available on demand, so don't worry about that. And any issues, just email hello@accountingexcellence.co.uk. That's hello@accountingexcellence.co.uk. And of course, if you have any questions about how to navigate and find your niche, just send them through and we will grill the panel at the end of the webcast. So please send them through to the little chat box beside the webcast window. So what we're going to be talking about today, we've got a various amount of themes and topics to get into. Up first, we're going to be looking about why now is the best time to find your niche. We'll also be looking at client profile and demographics and how you can just find new clients. So there's plenty on order today. So without further ado, let's move on to the first part, which is why now? MTD. So this little thing called MTD has happened. I don't know if any of you have heard of it. But it's caused this second wave of people to adopt cloud systems, and now they're looking for something else to do. And as we've seen with the Accounting Excellence Awards, one of the fastest ways people grow their firms is through finding a niche, and it seems to be getting more and more popular every year. So I guess in this post-MTD world then, why is now the best time to niche? Indy, we'll start with you. Why do you think now is the best time?
I think MTD forces people to look at their processes in a bit more detail, and I think that one of the things that we found with our accountants is, it's about profit, and it's about looking at reviewing your processes so that you can drive the most profit, seeing as, MTD is going to increase some of the processing time. And one of the first things that get cut, and having been a marketer that's already kind of gone through one recession, is marketing. And I think that's why we are probably seeing that, MTD is, yes, a reset button or a refresh button for most practices, and they're thinking of other ways that they can, chase profit-led activity. So, that's partly why we think, niching is probably a great way, because you've got cost efficiencies that come with nailing down a niche. And that's one thing that, we have seen with some of our practices where they've looked at their internal processes, got the technology right, and then focused on where they can drive growth from there.
And Della, why do you think now is a good time to sort of explore other services?
I think MTD has brought a lot of new clients on board using an accountant for perhaps the first time. So we're able to look around at the new client mix that we have and see what we can offer them. And you may have a lot of clients for the same industry, whatever. So let's go and learn everything we can about that industry and help them to do better business.
Absolutely. And Nadia, new firm as well, top 5 this year in the Accounting Excellence. I'm going to keep saying that throughout the webcast. But you're a perfect example of this. A new firm sensing now is a good time to set up and also find a niche. So why do you think it was for you in particular a good time to niche?
Well, with MTD, we started having more cloud-based solutions. And I was from the Armed Forces community anyway, as a military spouse, and I just saw how business owners from the community were after a one advisor, and they just could not find that one trusted accountant because Armed Forces community people are moving around all the time. So it was not as if they could all be in one location and say, oh, we want this accountant. And I just heard their pain points being from the community. And I thought, one is, this is a cause which is close to me. I want to help. And here it is, with all those cloud-based solutions, I can actually create something which is not already there, create something from nothing, and it would be a cloud-based firm, so I can cater for everybody from the Armed Forces community, and they don't have to be in one specific location, and they will get used to those processes when they move around. We can still be having our chats through video conference. Their accounting solutions is still cloud-based, so for them it would just be a new process, but once they've adopted it, then it could just lead to a long-term relationship.
And speaking of tech driving change, you've sort of found that with the KPM customers, haven't you? That finding a niche has sort of helped them increase their fees.
Increase their fees, increase the range of services, because one of the things that you can do by, by servicing a niche is that you can increase the range of different types of service that may come out of that niche. And then also, with technology in particular, because there are various cost efficiencies from cloud-based software, it does allow you to scale up. So if you're looking at other practices that maybe are struggling with MTD, it's a great opportunity for you to kind of broaden your horizons, I guess.
And it feels like it's a perfect time as well just to go back to basics.
Yeah.
And Della, anyone who's read your book, it's the number business. Anyone who's read that book, if you open up chapter 1, I think the opening chapter is called, is it Finding Your Why? I think that's the opening chapter. And so really finding a niche and this post-MTD landscape is really back to basics and looking at your why, isn't it?
Exactly. With small owner-managed practices, what's right for the business owner then needs to be built into the targets, the goals, the strategies of the business itself. So yours was built around an itinerant lifestyle, for want of a better word. So it's finding out what suits the business owner, their skills, their industry knowledge, and what makes them want to get up in the morning.
And that's a perfect point, I think, to bring us on to our opening topic. So we've realised now is a good time. MTD is this perfect time where you can find your niche. But I think some people might still be thinking, why niche? Why should I go down the specialist route? So I think a good place to start with this, Indy, is really just to clarify what we mean by niche, because I think some people have this idea in their mind what niche actually is, but sometimes it's not just about pigeonholing yourself.
No, I think the definition of niche is not to go after a small market, and I think that's the mistake that people often make by thinking that niches, it means that they're only operating in one small proportion of the market. A niche just helps you to focus on one customer profile, and it allows you to kind of create a profile of that customer, use it as a beachhead. So imagine, you are literally thinking of the most tactical way to tackle the whole market rather than trying to come up with 50 different personas. You're coming up with a handful, and that allows you to just saturate the beachhead. And, again, in tech terms, that is what we call it, is that, you're nailing down the beachhead. So it means that you can tackle the broader market, or you can expand out in different ways. You could deepen the range of services. So it allows you to either go a lot deeper into the niche, or you can at least find patterns within one or two personas and replicate that success with different markets.
And speaking of personas, this year at the Accounting Excellence Awards, we've had a variety of different niches. We've had academies, we've had musicians, we've had someone was doing something about the military. I don't know who that was, Nadia. Perhaps you can help us later on. And we've also had dentists. So Della, why do you think so many people, accountants, decide to work with professionals? I guess sort of dentists being a perfect example.
Some of them might have a passion. One of my coaching clients was into music, so deliberately went into the music sector with his accountancy. So it might be a personal passion, or it may just be a means of sort of, as Indy said, just targeting your marketing. We looked in Bristol and North Somerset, but that didn't stop us picking up clients in Aberdeen. We only ever marketed our business advisory services, but we had so many accounts clients. So it's a way of just focusing your resources.
I think that's an important point about the geography, because many people might not think of that being a niche. They might think it's quite targeted, but you can really just focus on something just like geography, and that could be a niche in itself. But speaking about targeting, Nadia, your niche is really targeted as well. Could you tell us a little bit about how you found your niche?
I started with, I'm an accountant, so the service that I'm going to offer in that business is going to be accountancy related. But I also had a look, and I wanted to see what the pain points potential customers would have. So I didn't necessarily go in and say, I'm only going to work with military spouses. That's not how I went about it. I had a look at what potential clients were out there. And one is, were they already being catered for? If they were already in a happy relationship with their own accountant, I was not going to be in there and be, a homewrecker. Exactly. So I just wanted to find somebody who was already unhappy, who was not being catered for, and I just knew a lot about the armed forces community. I knew a lot about their lives, so it was quite an easy one. But I would say that you don't necessarily have to go for a niche that you think you belong to in a way. It's just a niche that you can find out a bit more, that you can talk to them. It's maybe out of laziness. I had quite good contact with the armed forces, and I knew people from there, and I knew what their pain points were, and I knew that it was a big enough market for me to have a sustainable business.
And it's certainly going all in
Yes.
on that niche. Has that really contributed to your success rather than going down the generalist route?
Well, I started, when Della talks about how, start with your why really, is I had very limited resources. I could not go and say, I'm just going to cater to everybody around the UK and be your accountant, because I simply did not have the resources for it. And for me, niching means that I used my limited resources and pulled them together. And by narrowing down and only targeting my niche, it means I was sending them quite a concentrated message, as opposed to something which should have been diluted to the whole market.
So, Indy, Nadia found her niche from having that pre-existing relationship with the armed forces community. How can you find your niche if you're how do you, I guess, identify those service gaps if you haven't got that pre-existing relationship like Nadia?
Yeah, I think what you could do is, if you've got existing customers, is talk to your existing customers. Find that generally, the 20-odd% of customers that have got some sort of link or pattern between them, you can spot it by just kind of doing some basic, SurveyMonkey or something that allows you to just gather a little bit more research. If you don't have something that's quite so obvious in that respect, where you're not seeing a specific pattern, it might be as simple as just, like Della said, think about your why and what you're passionate about, and then seeing, you know, and replicating that authentically, like Nadia does, by actually living and breathing it. And it, you know, it's that old kind of adage that people are going to buy from people. And so if you are credible and authentic with what you are trying to put out as your niche, I have a great example. So we have a practice manager called Dan Ryder, Level Accountants, and he did exactly that. He surveyed his customers, and he found that, you know, that he as a person was very casual. He wanted accountancy to be simple. So for him that meant casual conversation. That meant the way that they dressed, the dress code, the way they spoke and addressed their market was very casual, because the customer was someone that was, again, a casual customer, say like your builders or your hairdressers. And they've done a fantastic job of understanding that. But because it is also, for him, it's very credible. He didn't want to wear a suit and a tie. He wanted to turn up in trainers and jeans, and that his customer would respect him as him. And I think that's you know, part of it is thinking, okay, well, you know, I am very enthusiastic about wine, as I was telling the ladies upstairs. You know, and what does that mean? Would I kind of look for customers that then were also swimming where I would want to swim? You know, in my own time. Play is play. So, you know, I think if you can make that connection, that, I mean, it only helps you long term anyway, spiritually, but I think that also helps and goes a long way for you to become an expert in that market and drum up a lot of business.
And Della, before we go in a little bit more deeper and find out how we can get to know our ideal clients a little bit better, for like a generalist, just sort of dipping their toe into niching, you mentioned geography. Is there any other services that come to your mind where it might be a nice specialism to get into, perhaps training or something along those lines?
Yeah, you've got the advisory. Some people specialise in a particular software. That's not forcing clients onto that software. It's making sure they go with a client who uses the appropriate, an accountant who uses the appropriate software. Or it might be an actual industry specialism. Yours is the background. I used to become an awful lot of triathletes and personal trainers because of my own hobbies. Yeah. Sorry, it's you mentioning the wine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, at the end of this, we're going to have a bring your hobby at the end.
Wine tasting.
Wine tasting at the end as well. So I think...
Only the finest.
Only the finest. I think that brings us on nicely to our next point of knowing your clients, how to build your ideal client as well. Because you mentioned you got your wine or triathlons or something like that, which would help you paint that picture of your ideal client. And it's really important to zero in and know who your client is, because if you're just chucking the net out, you might not always get the fish. So, Indy, what would be the first step for someone trying to really segment their niche?
Yeah, I think that's what, you know, it's simple. I think I mentioned SurveyMonkey is a simple tool, or something that allows you to just capture some data from your existing customers is a good way of kind of drawing some conclusions. The thing that you have to do is not be afraid to make some educated kind of educated guesses at the profiles that you're going after, because it's not an exact science, but there is something that, you know, you tend to understand, okay, well, where is this person frequenting, and what is that type of market sector, and who are the industry bodies that are then connected with that market sector that I could also kind of get in the front door with and put myself in front of. So, for example, you know, if you were targeting GPs, and you notice that, you know, there is some complex kind of partial exemption to do with medical dispensaries, that you could then sort of notice that pattern and find the industry bodies also connected to that, find the types of enthusiasts that are also connected to it, that you could then, your marketing and your content production is a lot simpler. But I think the first step is just some surveys, some educated kind of guessing around the profile of that person and where they tend, what markets they operate in. If you, again, if you don't have something that's a tool in that respect, or you don't necessarily have something that you could take an educated guess from, there's plenty of data out there from different types of industry bodies. So it's just about having a quick conversation with someone who may also be able to help give you some insight. I think that's sometimes we can get really overwhelmed with what identifying a persona profile might be. So I think it's just keeping it really simple, and maybe it means someone, picking up the phone to someone like Adela up and down the country, or Nadia, who may also be able to give you some insight, because they are equally as, passionate about speaking about why this works for business.
Absolutely, and this is sort of really basic stuff, just something you should be having in your practice anyway, of knowing your client. Adela, this is something you would quite a proponent on as well, wasn't it? Sort of building your avatar of knowing your client. Could you talk us a little bit about how, even beyond niche, and why this is important?
Again, it's focusing your marketing, making it really genuine, that you are talking to a particular person, at least in your mind. When I wrote my book as well, I had 2 people I was writing for. And, their name, their gender, their family, their personality traits, their pain points, their background. So all your marketing is for this particular person. And yes, you'll pick up others as well, but it really speaks to certain people and reaches their heart, because you appear to know them inside out, because they just happen to be the person that you're looking at.
And you can guess these things, can't you? You can come up with educated guesses about who this could be. But Nadia, you're really coming at this from someone who knows their ideal client, and just through working with them, knowing them as part of your Armed Forces community. Could you tell us a little bit about your ideal client and how you went about doing that? We've also got a couple of slides as well, which we will be flicking through whilst Nadia's talking about how she went about her ideal client. So, first of all, how did you come up with your ideal client?
I have to make a confession. I actually read Della's book. And I wanted to nail down my client avatar, because, as Della said, I do a lot of social media. I post a lot, and I really wanted my ideal client to feel I was speaking to her. And that's how I started it. I picked somebody who was real, actually, from the Armed Forces community. We have changed the names for the slide, I'd like to point out, but I picked somebody who was real in my mind. And to me, that was that person, and that was her story. She was a professional. She knew what she was doing. She had a big change in her life. She now had, she was living with her husband, and she had given birth to twins. So there was a big change in her life. And now she was thinking about setting up a business, and she was looking for an accountant. And for me to be able to relate to that person, I gave her where she shops, what she does in her spare time. So I think in the next slide, you actually have it. So she's taken the bold decision, to set up her own business. And she also wants her business to be able to move around, because she's still following husband Neil around the country and abroad. And she wants the flexibility. It's about her why. And as part of what Louise needs, she needs a flexible accountant who can follow her around as she's moving around countries, around different locations.
So you're really going into the detail, because when an accountant is presented with the idea of coming up with your ideal client and painting that picture of who they are, sometimes we don't quite know how much detail and how little detail do we need. Do we need a name? Do we need eye colour? Do we need hair colour? How much detail do we actually need? And sometimes people might have like a matchstick person of their ideal clients. They might just know gender and job, the kind of job, what they're doing, and age. But with this one, and it's quite a good template if you're planning on creating an ideal client profile, just to see how much detail Nadia's gone into it. So you even got there about her lifestyle.
Her lifestyle, because to me, it was a real person. It is speaking to one person. And people don't want to buy just from business. People come to me because they want to, to work with Nadia. And I just wanted to make sure that I had my personality come through when I'm speaking. So I would not just talk about business with my clients. We talk about, what have you done this weekend? What's in the middle aisle of Aldi this week? This is the sort of accountant that I am. And I really wanted my personality to come through. And the way for me to do that is to understand who I'm speaking to. So, for example, if I was speaking to somebody else, maybe a dentist, I would be talking about teeth. I don't know. But
Whitening products.
Whitening products, yes. But to me, when I'm speaking to Louise, I know what to talk about. How are the kids doing? What after school club are they in? And even in your social media, people think they should be talking about business and tax reliefs all the time when they're accountants. When really you don't have to be 100% business all the time.
Because even in this one, you've got about how Louise, your ideal client, her hobbies outside, and what you were mentioning there, she likes going to National Trust properties on the weekend. So it's having that thing where you would have something in common, what that person likes and does beyond just these clothes that they wear in their working life. So
I think the reason why I put this detail was I wanted to show that she was a little bit time poor because she was taking care of her twins. She still had she wanted more of a social life that she could not have right now, and that is why she was hanging out on those Facebook groups, and that is where I would be able to go and find her sometimes, because you want to go and connect with your ideal client in their natural habitat. If I just sat on my website waiting for the inquiries to come in without making any effort, they would simply not come. You do need to go out and find out where your ideal clients are, go and spend time with them, let them know about you as a person, as an accountant. I think clients come to me not just because I'm an accountant. They come to me because they like me and they like my personality and they like that the things we talk about, which is non-accountancy. If I was just wearing a suit, I would not be their ideal client, their ideal accountant, sorry. It's almost like a two-way match, if I can put it. I have to choose them, but they also have to choose me.
And Della's really going back to you getting clients which you like and people you want to spend time with on not just completely about business, but sort of on that human basis as well.
It is. We were talking earlier off camera about one of the joys of running your own business is you get to choose who you work with. And that's as much about who you don't want to work with as who you do. So, work out what works for you. And I think there's a commercial side to it as well. You do your best work for people you like, people you relate to. So don't be scared to be quite picky. Personal, picky about who you want to work with.
When you are running a small business, I think your business is very much about your values, what matters to you. And it's fine to have clients who have different beliefs, because we all have different beliefs. But as long as you share the same values, then you're going in for a long-term relationship. And it's the same I think in business, for your staff, for your clients. You really need to be able to nail down what is important to you, and that will flow through your business, and you will attract the right crowd.
And talking about attracting the right crowd, Indy, from like a technology perspective, tech can really help you nail down your ideal clients, particularly something like a CRM system could be really useful when it comes to sketching your ideal client.
Yeah, we have a CRM system that we use for KPM, and we also have one within KPM. But again, I think it's invaluable because the main thing is that you have a wealth of your own data, and also, like both Della and Nadia have said, that when you also understand the personas that you don't want more of, to say no to something is not a bad thing. If things, every business is unique, and so it may be that your specialism is, okay, I want to find clients that I can increase my monthly recurring revenue with. So what other services can I offer a particular segment of clients who have been receptive to it, and which types of clients are not receptive to it? And so which ones do I need to lean more towards and segment a little bit deeper? And how can I try and target them a little bit more with my marketing and my communication versus the ones that you think, oh God, this client segment is a little bit tricky and maybe I need to dial down the communication. You can tailor it and you can make things more customizable. And I think that's from, you know, any business that I've worked with in tech, a CRM, a good CRM is invaluable. And I think that it's all about making sure that you customize your interactions with those niches in the right way. So if you're an accountancy practice and you don't particularly have a niche, in fact, you know, it's quite a broad medium, but you recognise that you would like to improve, you know, growth within certain niches, you can, again, tailor that communication to that market with various different partners, you know, leading within that particular niche. And I think the CRM is very good at allowing you to do that.
It's absolutely, it's important points you said about there, about some people have those concerns about what if I alienate a client by doubling down on this niche and suddenly they're receiving all this marketing information or what have you about their restaurant that they don't own or something like that. Della, what about you? Does tech really help this process?
Yes, it does, and you're absolutely right about the CRM and segment your clients. It's no good selling advisory to a tiny business who, you know, a part-time hobby business. You can give them a few hints, just do that as part of your service, but they won't ever buy advisory. So give them what they need and give them that as a good fee as well for what you do. Provide value at whatever end you're doing.
It's a really important point because you mentioned there about advisory, and it's always a debate which you see often on Accounting Web about, well, my client doesn't want that service. Why would they want that? They're just a sole trader that just wants to get on with their day-to-day job and they just want the compliance done. But it is knowing how to communicate that service to your ideal client as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I think all clients would want some element of advisory, whether they think it's worthwhile enough to pay for is another matter. So, like I say, even our compliance-only accountants clients, we would provide some sort of business advice, but more on a passive basis. But yes, looking at the ones where you really can help them with advisory, you can help them to improve their business either by growing it or by getting a better work-life balance is often a thing for small business owners working 80 hours a week.
And once you've found your ideal client, then it's easier to know what services to provide and sell to them. Before this webcast, we were talking about a range of different services. We've even mentioned a couple throughout, but something like training we can perhaps then dip into once we know who our ideal clients are, or even like a cloud technology consultant or something like that. What sort of services could you have you sort of experimented with, Nadia, since knowing who your ideal client is?
I started with the client, set up the business. So already when I set up the business, I had this niche market that I was catering for. Initially, I was just offering compliance services, which is your tax filing, accounts, basically what you need to do to keep out of jail, literally. But what I found is by talking to my existing clients was they wanted to do a bit more of the training. So I started offering a training package for them, for those who wanted to do their own bookkeeping, to understand the numbers a bit more. And after that, I found clients who actually, I offered a basic level of advisory anyway with the compliance, but who wanted a bit more, not just the normal stuff. They wanted the what ifs, what if I do that, can you review the business plan? So they wanted a bit more advisory. So I then set up an advisory service as well. But the focus for me, for the business, is to be able to grow and to be able to maintain what I wanted to do is it has to be simple. So I would say I have 3 services: training, compliance and advisory. And in my mind, it's clear what I'm offering to the client, and also the client knows what I'm offering to them. If a client came to me and wanted something, I don't know, R&D tax reliefs or something, at the moment, for the one client, it's not something that I can offer. And I would say no, because I simply do not have the resources in place at the moment to offer this. Now, if I had 10 clients coming, all of them with the same need, then I would explore, offering a new service. But at the moment, I think to keep the accountancy practice simple and to really respond to what my target market needs, I'm happy with the 3 services.
And Indy, you wouldn't an accountant, I guess, wouldn't really know what services to offer if they didn't know their ideal client. And especially in this post-MTD world, something like a cloud consultant or something like that is like a really good opportunity to move into, now knowing who your ideal client is and what perhaps issues they may be encountering.
Exactly. I mean, that's exactly what some of our clients do. So, again, another practice manager that's a good example of this is Alan Woods from Woods Squared. He looks at, he's looked at his market niches, but he's also looked at his customer profile and thought, you know what, I can open up a new revenue stream with this and offer payroll. And that's, a good example of him looking at it thinking, this is a cloud practice, truly cloud, in the sense that it can, if my customer is moving their business into the States or they're a non-domicile, it means that he's looked at those enough to say, here's another service that I can offer. There's also cloud and can go with that client anywhere. And I think that's something that comes back to the fact that once you have moved into that initial cloud space, a niche is no longer a small part of the market. It's more of a specific beachhead that could be a global business, but you're just a very good master within that particular area as a cloud practice manager.
Wonderful. And we now know who our ideal client is. It might be Louise, it could be anyone, but we know who our ideal client is, and now we have to find them. So next step is, how can we find our ideal clients? So Della, we'll start off with you then. What sort of opportunities are there out there to find your client? I know you in particular are quite the whiz on Twitter and social media. I'm sure many people at home probably follow Della. She's here in the studio. This is Della. We've confiscated her phone and deleted the Twitter app just for this 60 minutes. But what sort of opportunities are out there? So, like, social media is a really good opportunity in order to find new clients as well, isn't it?
Yep. Social media is fabulous because it allows you to go beyond what you can do geographically. And we brought in about a third of our leads through social media. And for you, you're not tied to one place. You can speak to your clients and attract clients around the country, around the world. It's a really good way. And LinkedIn is fairly formal. I'd keep that much more businessy with a little bit of personality, whereas I like Twitter, which is much more personality. So you sort of find the playground where you're happy, but also find where your potential clients are hanging out. You talked about Facebook groups, and I do that as well. So it's a case of providing useful stuff that people want. You don't need to sell. It's a marketing tool, not a selling tool. So just getting out there, letting people know what you do, but also how you can help them by demonstrating it.
It's the same sort of process as you were mentioning when you wrote your book, where you had your ideal client, you had your audience in mind, and you're tailoring the content then for that particular audience. And Nadia, you're also quite active on social media, and it feels from looking at your Twitter feed that it is really very much for your ideal client as well. It is talking to that community.
This is correct. So where do you find your ideal client? I would say from your client avatar, you will already know where your ideal client is hanging out. So in my case, I go to a lot of the sort of business conferences aimed at the armed forces, because this is the natural habitat for my clients. I go to the Facebook groups where I have armed forces community businesses hanging out, and just be helpful and just be yourself. I don't go in saying, I'm an accountant, come and buy my services. I'm helpful. If they have questions, how do I do this on my tax return? I would say just give value as much as you can, and this itself will attract the right people, because when it comes to the time that actually they don't want to do the tax returns anymore, or even I had a lot of referrals from people that I have never worked with. I know.
Because they've heard of you.
They've heard of me. So just by being helpful on a specific community, when their friends would ask for accountants or anything like that, they would say, I haven't worked with Nadia, but she seems really good because I've seen her, I've seen what she talks about, she seems that she knows her stuff, go and have a chat. So I would say a lot of my referrals actually come from people I haven't even worked with.
And referrals are so important when it comes to niche. It is really, niche is really about referrals, isn't it? Every year we're seeing in Accounting Excellence the data that comes through. Referrals is at the top. That is one of the main ways that people, the entrants to the awards, find their clients. And with you in particular, it feels like when you're looking for clients, they know that you understand their issues.
Yes.
They may be moving around a bit with their jobs or with their life because of their partners, and that might not be something which their current accountant understands.
I think with referrals, it can go both ways. If you do a really bad job for a community, word will get out there that you're not good. But equally, if you do give incredible value, word will go round about how good you are. And in my case, I'm a good accountant, I would say. So I do get lots of referrals from people who have worked with me and people who have not worked with me. But by working with your niche, you will get known within your niche, and it doesn't really matter what your niche is. Dentist again, if you hang around, you go to the dentist conference and you talk about all the
what lovely teeth you've got, yeah.
all the tax things to do with dentists. I have no idea about
teeth.
Yeah, so I don't know anything about dentists, but just by being the go-to person for that niche, you will pick up referrals.
And in these referrals is really the bread and butter of niching, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah. I thought you missed a trick. I thought you were going to say it was in the middle aisle at Lidl, Aldi, special deal. But yeah, it is. Referrals is absolutely, it's the most logical way, and it's the cheapest form of acquisition for a customer. So one of the things that niching allows you to do is, obviously, if you're in the right room and you're making sure that you're present at the right sort of events, like Nadia says, you are the expert in the room, and you're passionate about it. It's a credible approach. They can go to your Facebook page or they can go to your profile, and they see that this is something that you are evangelical about, on some level, because you speak about it or you reference it in any way. And I think that's a great way of just making sure that you're touching the softer side, which is just reassuring them. Although you can't put your arm around them physically, it's a bit more like that. You're just giving a little bit of a nod to say you're in the right place.
Yeah.
As a small practice owner, actually, this is where you can really be genuine. If you don't have to go and work with a niche or somebody you don't want to, because it is your practice. You just can put your personality come through and just be yourself and be very genuine about what you're offering and who you want to offer it to.
And before we move on to the questions, I've just looked over and we've got a number of questions already come through. Is there any other areas, any other ways that you can use your niche to find new clients? Della?
I think the best way is referrals, but don't just wait for them. You can ask people, do you know anybody else I can help? And definitely ask your best clients, because hopefully they'll refer people like them.
And with you, Della, I think this was something I picked up from your book as well. You were a big proponent of going to networking events, and also speaking is a really good opportunity to put your face out there and to and for people to know that's the person who knows my issues.
Yeah, like most people, I absolutely hated public speaking, and I'm still not keen on it now. She says, sat in the studio.
We'll tell you later it's being filmed, Della.
Yes. So, but it was something that we ran our quarterly Money Matters events, and I had a guest speaker on some business topic, and marketing was always very popular. Business owners always wanted more on marketing, and then I'd speak on a business growth topic as well. If you can't speak yourself, you can still host the event. So it's nice. Figure out what works for you. But yes, we ran the quarterly events and became known for them. We provided some business advice free of charge to whoever came along. So a lot of startups came, and that was great. It was a way of giving back to the community. But some were also our target market.
Wonderful. Well, we know who our niche clients are. We know how to use tech to find them. We know how to use social media to find them. What else do we need what other questions are there left? Well, we've got a number of questions that have come through, so there's still some topics we still need to cover. So in this next section, we're going to be looking at the questions which you've kindly sent through, and there's still time. If you have any more questions, please send them through and we will answer them throughout this webcast. And the questions we don't get to, we will cover them in a post-show podcast. So look out for that as well, coming soon on Accounting Web. So the first question comes from Accrual Intentions. Okay, good one. So for larger firms that can assign an entire department to a niche, this is fine. But for smaller firms working across a range of owner-managed businesses, this just, let me just run out that again. But for smaller firms working across a range of owner-managed businesses, this is just an achievable pivot. What does the panel think? So, Nadia, you look like you might have something to say on this one.
I have something to say. And somebody said that to me at the start of my business journey, and I'm going to share that with you. And what I was told was, as an accountant, let the crowd love you or hate you. There is no money in the middle.
I like that.
You like that? And that's one you can use next time. but it is true. A lot of accountants are afraid of niching because they might put off somebody. But it's okay to put off somebody who's not in your niche market, because you're really saying you've done your research. You're saying that I can build a business by focusing on this niche. I'm going to go and put all my marketing efforts towards that niche. Yes, you will have some people who are not within your niche who will come to you because of, it might be because they want to work with a cloud-based accountant or something. Or it could be some people might be put off because of your targeted marketing. But you need to be okay with that. Be okay with putting off people, because people will either love you and they will come to you, they will hate you, not come to you, or they might just feel, lukewarm about you, in which case you're not making any money out of it.
And for anyone watching, listening to Nadia there, in the sound check, she did say that she had Marmite, and that is really, Marmite and toast, that's really
I was thinking about that, yes.
A perfect analogy there. Anyone else issues on that? Because it does come up quite often in the Accounting Excellence data. And okay, the larger firms, you do get the big and mid-tier firms. They have specialist departments which cater just for, say, like a restaurant specialism or something like that. But you also do have small firms which, similar to Nadia, they come from, it might be something in their background, it might be because they have a passion in music, say, or something like that, and they decide to go all in on that. Is that something which everyone else has sort of found on the panel?
Yeah, I think it's bizarre to say only big firms can specialise, because they're not. It's a department that specialises, whereas a small firm, the firm can specialise. So it's in a way it's more relevant to smaller firms.
Exactly.
But if you don't want to specialise, if you like the mixture, then fine. Don't.
Yeah.
It's your business. You do what you like, what you enjoy.
Yeah. I think building on that is that, the whole point is it's a small business, and actually that's where the cost efficiencies are felt the most, is if it's Nadia looking at, spending, okay, I'm going to be an accountant and spray, my marketing budget everywhere, but advert here and, and it's just noise, actually. And people are bombarded by noise all the time. If you go onto Facebook or, like you've said, some of the groups, if you go on your feed generally, it's just noise, too much noise. The best way to cut through, in particular for the smaller businesses, is to focus in on those beachheads, all those targets, and be very credible in the approach. I think that's a great way of reducing the cost or reducing the effort and trying to spend even, time marketing or reaching out to get your brand seeded in that person's brain. You don't want to waste time on the people that are lukewarm about you. You want to really just reach out to the people that, that is me. That is exactly who I am. I need to go and talk to these people.
If you don't niche, it's almost like holding up a sign saying accountant with an arrow pointing at you. You might attract some people, you will get some clients, but will they really be... Firstly, will you have targeted your services for them? And also, does it mean that next time there's another accountant holding up the same sign with an arrow pointing at them saying accountant, will they just switch? So I,
Oh God, yeah, that's such a good one.
Especially if the other
Yeah.
accountant is cheaper.
Yes, you're always competing on price.
on price.
If I was an accountant, I'd have a sign that said cheaper accountant. But thanks very much. And Nadia as well, when it comes, still on that one point, you've been recognised as well by the Armed Forces with with an award as well. And so that I'm sure that would come in handy when you're really targeting that audience. And if I was in the Armed Forces and I was looking for an accountant and I saw that you're quite friendly towards that community, I'm naturally going to be swaying towards you.
There are lots of awards out there, and your clients will put you forward, will nominate you for loads of awards. Awards take time to fill in. So you want to make sure that whatever you're doing in your business has to appeal to your target market. In my case, it was the Soldiering On Awards that I was nominated for and shortlisted. And if I talk to somebody from the Armed Forces community, they know about the award and they know that this recognition means something. If it was a random award about, I don't know, short woman in business award sort of thing, that would not really matter to them. So it's really important that whatever activity you're doing in your business, that it means something to your clients. Otherwise, there's no point wasting your time, your resources on it.
I still nominate you for that award.
I was about to say, but we would still like that award as well, anyway, if it's going.
The next question comes in from Jane, who asks, should I continue hunting for someone who has the knowledge of my niche, or should I train someone up? So I think Jane is referring to recruitment, which recruitment seems like such a big issue currently. Again, with the Accounting Excellence Awards, one of the biggest challenges that kept coming up, about 90% of the firms that entered was recruitment. It was something which they're going to find quite difficult coming in the next 5 years. So if you have a niche and you're a specialist in that niche, and then you're looking for someone to bring on as well, should you get someone equally into that niche, or should you? What should be your next step? Because it's difficult as it is finding quality candidates. Indy?
Yeah, I'm a big believer that, it's about attitude.
Yeah.
And so there's knowledge, and then there's skills, and there's attitude. And I think attitude is the thing that, for me, is so important, and it comes back to your own values. And I think if you have defined your values personally, or even, in the practice, in the broader sense of, what you're trying to run as a business, it's that getting the attitude fit right is more important than someone understanding your niche, because that will come very easily. I think most of the businesses that I've worked for in the past, no two are alike, and as long as you have the right sort of attitude, which is disciplined learning and disciplined thought, the right person will sit in that seat very comfortably, because they will be passionate about learning it and they will feel they're growing. So I think as long as you have that right for you, the rest will come. And I think that there's some beauty in also having someone that's come from a different area altogether, may have a mental jolt of something from a previous life that you won't have considered, because they will have thought about a particular other niche, or maybe a different market, or something else, some other form of creativity that's applied to what you're doing is, it's only good for everyone, really. So that's what I think.
And Nadia, you've recently recruited some people. So what did you look for when you took on your new recruits?
For me, it was, as Indy mentioned, it was about the attitude, about having staff that share the same values. So all my staff have different skill sets. They're very different to me in terms of what they can offer. But as a business, we have a better offering because we have different skills. But what was most important for me was having the people with the right values, because if there was anything that they didn't know about, I know that from their values, they would be the type of people who would go and learn and strive to be the best for our clients. So this is one of our values, actually. And I would say, yes, focus on values when it comes to recruitment. And if you are struggling to find somebody who has the right skills, pick somebody who you think has the potential to be that person you want him to be, or her to be, and pick somebody who shares the same values as your business.
And Della, I'm sure you would. echo that.
I'd say exactly the same. It's on attitude, on personality. You can always teach the specific skills, and you can introduce people to your particular industry, your particular niche, whatever it is.
Wonderful. Well, we've spent 10 minutes going after 2 questions. So I think rather than digging too much into the remaining questions, we'll save those for the podcast, which we're going to be recording shortly after this one. So be sure to look out for that on accountingweb.co.uk, where we will dive further into these questions and we will hopefully answer them. So if we spent 10 minutes on 2 questions, I'd imagine this is going to be a 90-minute podcast. So look out for that one soon. But what's left is to maybe reflect on what we've learned so far in this webcast. So what I'm going to ask each of you to do is just to give me one key takeaway which you feel would be really empowering for someone who is thinking about moving into a niche, or maybe has even started with a specialism and maybe needs that extra little bit of confidence to get them through. So Della, let's start with you.
If you want to be the go-to person, it's easier to be the go-to person in a smaller pool, in a niche.
Nadia, what would be your final tip before we sign off?
Don't be afraid to alienate potential clients who are not within your niche.
Wonderful. And Indy, the last word is with you.
Gosh. It's one of Della's, actually. Start with why.
Start with your why.
Start with why.
Well, we started with a why, and so it's good that we finished with a why as well. And so that's an important message. So thanks, everyone, for joining us today. Thanks, Della. Thanks, Nadia. And thanks, Indy. It's been an incredibly interesting webcast. And the webcast will continue in the podcast coming up shortly after. So look out for that on accountingweb.co.uk. Well, all that's left is to say thank you for watching and joining us today. And thank you as well to KPM for supporting this podcast, this webcast. But until next time, I've been Richard Hattersley, and thanks for joining us on this special Accounting Excellence Nail Your Niche talk. See you again.